So I had no friends by design. I had no sex by design because I couldn't afford to slip up and get pregnant. The best thing to do was to keep my behind celibate, and I was not happy on the island. Most of my friends thought that I was having the time of my life, when in actuality I was miserable and crying every day. But in 8 months, I was off that island. My first big break, well, I've had a few of them, but I feel as though none of them would have happened without the very first one. And the very first one was a radio job that I got myself. I found it in the back of a radio magazine at the Northeastern University Library, which is where I graduated from college. While everybody else is in there studying, I was in there looking for jobs because without an inheritance, I was on my own once I graduated. And I applied for several jobs, but the one that I took, because it was the only one that I got, was at a little radio station in St. Croix called WVIS. When I got my acceptance letter, it was such broken English, I never showed my mother and father or anybody else because I knew that my parents would say no, and all of my friends would have been like hell to the no. I took the job sight unseen, graduated from college with a start date of 2 weeks after graduation, and when I got to the island, there were a few things that I already knew. Number one, I am not here to make friends or fall in love. I gave myself 1 year to get a job in the mainland and get off the island. I had no time to make friends because friends cost money, and I had to use every dime that I made to call the states to schmooze program directors to try to get a job. So I had no friends by design. I had no sex by design because I couldn't afford to slip up and get pregnant. Women in St. Croix at that time were not driven workers. So me being, a well-educated woman from a good, solid family on the mainland, I was ripe. I was ripe for the picking. Thick, island men like them thick. Oh, I was cute to an island man. The island women didn't like me so much because, God, I wanted to have a career. I really wanted to work. Like, I was too driven. So St. Croix was very different from everything that I ever wanted in my life. And I didn't want any part of that laid-back life at a time when my life was just beginning. $3.25 an hour. I worked a 4-hour shift. I played songs like Tiny Whiny. Tiny whiny, why oh bum bum. Tiny whiny, why oh bum bum. All Due Respect, but Janet Jackson's Control album had just come out. The Beastie Boys were just popping off. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you serious? With Tiny Whiny, they could have told me, Wendy, you can own the radio station now, and I was still been like, oh hell no, I want to get off of the island. While I was on the island though, a brand new radio station started in New York. You might remember before 97 was Hot 97, it was 103.5. And the DJs were all Hispanic and Italian. They didn't have a black.
New York's Hot 103, Banjiro is in here. We get paid for this. Unbelievable. Amazing.
Blackie at your service. I made contact at that point with the brand new program director of that station, Joel. He wasn't ready to hire me. He wasn't even thinking about hiring me, but I caught his attention. He knew I was black, because back then you sent a picture with your resume, and he called me while I was in St. Croix, and he said, well, you're all the way down there. It's not like you can come up here and, do a few overnights or anything like that. He just kind of dismissed it. But only some people leave a stain in the brain that will remain. Whatever, I'm the weird black girl in St. Croix. Maybe he'll never forget me. So 8 months after being in St. Croix, I secured a job in Washington, D.C., just 3 hours from New York, in my dream city. As soon as I got to D.C., I called Joel and I said, guess who it is? It's Island Wendy, Black Island Wendy. I work in D.C. now. I worked at a little radio station, AM station, WOL, $9,000 a year, which was better than $3.25 an hour, but it wasn't about the money at that particular point. It was about the climb and the focus. Got to DC, didn't care about making friends, didn't care about boyfriends. I cared about getting out of there, gave myself a year, and make it to New York. Get someplace where the men are hot and I can get a boyfriend and stop just focusing on my career. I was in DC under a year. Joel in New York, program director at Hot 103, called me up and said, hey, so you still want to work here? I said, yeah. He said, you start tomorrow, be here by midnight. What? Midnight, New York. I'm there. At that point, I was only like 22 years old. And my friends were still working, selling Lancome at Macy's with big degrees and doing State Farm insurance. Really? Didn't you study to be a doctor? Really? So I was focused and I was on it. I hopped in my Subaru and drove up to Astoria. That's where the radio station was at the time, Astoria, Queens. I got to the radio station about 5 hours early. I was embarrassed that I got there so early, but I'm not familiar with driving in the boroughs, like Queens, you know, Queens. I showed up to the radio station at midnight and they loved me.
Listen, we're gonna take a break right now. It's the world famous Top 8 at 8 countdown. I'm Wendy Williams, VJ Ralph McDaniel's in the studio, Tribe Called Quest.
Ironically speaking, you know what he loved about me? He loved that my skin was black, but my delivery was white. Women in radio were still sidekicks, you know. It was Robin Quivers to Howard Stern. If you were a woman on radio, you were doing the slow jam show or sitting by some man. When I landed that job 2 years out of college at Hot, I was making a $60,000 a year salary with a tremendous amount of money being made in public appearances. And because I was single and I was young and I had no student loan. So for all intents and purposes, I was rich, very rich. And I haven't looked back, and it all paid off. Then I made up for lost time. Had lots of boyfriends, girlfriends, not girlfriends, not how you doing, but you know, friends who were girls, picked up a bad drug habit. Now here I am on the set of my very own talk show.